What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video, since there were so many positive responses regarding my previous video, despite the fact that its views aren't particularly great, we're going to be trying another spicy tier list video for those of you looking to invest into some spicier GBL Pokemon, but you're not really sure which Pokemon are secretly really strong, which Pokemon will provide a challenge while still being really fun to use, or which Pokemon you absolutely should not be powering up unless it's literally your favorite Pokemon of all time. Now, if you missed the previous video, I ranked the top 70 to 80 most attack-weighted Pokemon available for the Great League. This time, I'll be ranking 90 plus spicy XL Pokemon that I have personally built and used in the Go Battle League. Now, by the time this video goes live, I will have actually recently done a live stream featuring all of these Pokemon in my typical roulette wheel style, so if you would like to see these Pokemon in action in the Go Battle League, definitely go ahead and check that out. But with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. Which XL Pokemon for the Great League do you most regret building? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the ranking now. Now, this is going to be the tier list. Before we get into it though, however, I do want to mention that unfortunately, whilst yes, there were a lot of really positive responses, view-wise, my video did not perform very well the previous one, so if you do enjoy this content, please make sure you show your support, leave a like, hype the video, and leave a comment as well, just to show your support, as it really does mean a lot to me. It shows that you guys, whilst a lot of you aren't clicking on the videos, those of you that are clicking on these videos, you do really appreciate this content. Now anyways, let's get on to the actual tier list. First of all, we've got actually a great Pokemon. These are some of the best Pokemon that I have built that are XL, but are still quite spicy, so you're not going to see something like a Sableye or a Jumpluff or a Medicham or a Azumarill. Those are obviously just not very spicy Pokemon at all, but you are going to see some very cool picks in this top tier. Next up, we've got a solid pick, but nothing special. These are kind of just decent picks. They're not like crazy fun or anything like that, but they're also not that challenging to use. We've then got very fun, but hard to play. These Pokemon can be very exciting, but also quite difficult to use. We then got interesting typing, but moveset lets it down. So there are quite a lot of Pokemon that are going to be in this category that have very unique dual typings that unfortunately just don't have very good movesets, but if they got a move update, could potentially be actually fairly strong. Then we've got good typing slash moveset, but stats let it down. So these Pokemon probably barely get to 1000 CP, honestly. So unfortunately, whilst they do have maybe good coverage, good typing, good charge moves, unfortunately they just don't have the stats to back it up. And then we've got it's fun but lacks coverage to be viable, so these Pokemon might just have a complete monotype moveset where they're just completely walled by so many Pokemon. And then we've got kind of just met all round. These are Pokemon that honestly might be better than some of the Pokemon in the tiers above. However, they just don't impress at all. They're not very fun, and when you're building these types of Pokemon, you do at least want the Pokemon to be fun to use. And then we've got the worst Pokemon I've ever used, and actually there's gonna be quite a few Pokemon that fit into this category. It won't just be a single Pokemon like I did last time. So anyways, with that being said, let's start ranking them. So first of all, we've got Pidgeotto. Now this Pokemon, it's a really weird one because it's sort of in between a solid pick but nothing special, and also kind of just met all round. Like, this Pokemon, it's not unique in terms of its typing. There are loads of normal and flying type Pokemon. It does have Twister, which got buffed this season, but outside of that, it's not really got anything unique going for it. I guess you could also run Twister on Fearow. That's the one, yeah. Fearow also, I guess, learns Twister, which just has better coverage moves anyways. So yeah, I'm going to have to put this here, to be honest. Next up, we've got Pikachu. And this one, I'm going to go with good typing. Well, I mean, typing not so unique. It's just a pure electric type Pokemon, but it's actually got good moveset in Thundershock, Wild Charge, and then Surf. And then you could potentially run different versions of Pikachu. They've got like Flying Press or Fly. But unfortunately, its stats, it does just barely get over 1000 CP. So unfortunately, if it had better stats, honestly, it could be a decent pick. But for now, we're going to have to put it here. Next up, we've got Alolan Sandshrew, and this is going straight into actually a great Pokemon. This Pokemon is really strong. You've got Powder Snow, which got buffed fairly recently. Night Slash, of course, did get a slight nerf this season, only boosting the attack stat by a single stage when you do get a boost, but also Gyro Ball has been, of course, buffed recently. Next up, we've got the Kanto version, and I'm going to have to put this here in a solid pick, but nothing special. There are just a few Pokemon that are pure ground types that have a similar sort of moveset that are just slightly better than it. Next up, we've got Nidorino, and this is probably also going to go here. Same for Nidorina. They are, unfortunately, they're kind of okay, but they do just get hard-walled by a lot of different Pokemon, but stats-wise, they're fairly decent. Next up, we've got Oddish, and Oddish is... I might actually just put this in kind of just meh all round. Like, it doesn't do anything exceptional. There are plenty of course, grass and poison type Pokemon, so that is going to be a key theme here with the kind of just meh all round. These Pokemon, they're not going to be anything special in terms of their movesets, in terms of their typings, in terms of anything really. They're not going to be super attack weighted Pokemon where maybe you can at least nuke something. So yeah, unfortunately, I kind of have to just put it here. Next up, we got Mankey, and this is going to be, it's fun, but lacks coverage to be viable. This Pokemon, obviously in its purified form, you can run it with Return. However, you are still going to be completely walled by Ghost-type Pokemon, and Ghost is a pretty common typing in the current meta. So unfortunately, whilst I do really enjoy using it, we can't really put it any higher than this. Next up, we've got Growlithe, the Hisuian version. I'm going to say very fun, but hard to play, and it's hard to play just because it is so weak to the ground typing. Yes, of course, Mudslappers aren't as common these days, but even so, like, Quagsire is a super common Pokemon. You got the likes of Jellicent, any water type where you're double weak to water as well. That is going to be a huge problem for it. Next up, we've got Machop, and kind of the same thing as Mankey. It is fun to use, but unfortunately, it's got actually the exact same moveset there with Karate Chop, Cross Chop, and Return. Next up, we've got Alolan Geodude, and I'm actually going to put this in actually a great Pokemon. This Pokemon has Volt Switch, it's got Rock Slide and Rock Tomb. Of course, Rock Tomb did get slightly nerfed this season, but honestly, like, that is a pretty decent moveset. Yes, again, you are going to have to be careful of Ground-type Pokemon, but this doesn't have multiple double weaknesses like the Hisuian Growlithe, so I do think this is definitely a much better Pokemon to use. Next up, we've got Slowpoke, and I'm going to put this in actually a great Pokemon as well. This Pokemon's got pretty decent stats. It is surprisingly quite bulky. Water Pulse isn't the best charge move, but you do have Confusion and Side Shot, which is a really great combination. And honestly, this Pokemon puts in a lot of work every time I use it. Next up, we've got Shadow Magnemite, and I'm going to have to put this one in very fun, but hard to play. This is a very attack-weighted Pokemon, and like the Growlithe, of course, it is going to be double weak to ground. However, unlike the Alolan Geodude, this Pokemon's stats just don't really help it out there. So if you are weak to something, you are getting absolutely shredded immediately, and you likely don't even get to a charge move either. Next up, we've got Doduo, and again, it's going to be very fun but hard to play. This Pokemon, unlike the Pidgeotto here, which we do have in the kind of just meh all round, this Pokemon is very attack weighted. You can run it with Legacy Swift for some very fast-paced spamming of charge moves, or you could also run it with Brave Bird to nuke a lot of Pokemon. It is really fun to use, but it is also just very glassy. We then got the Kanto Grimer. I'm going to put this in, where do we put this here? Probably just a solid pick, but nothing special. I would have honestly put this maybe here before the Mudslap nerf, whereas now, unfortunately, because Mudslap isn't as good, we probably just have to put it into a solid pick, but nothing special. And the same for the Shadow Alolan Grimer version. Same thing, like, it's decent, but you wouldn't really run it over the likes of a Drapion or even like a Shadow Skuntank. But next up, we got Shelder, and this is the first Pokemon that I'm going to be putting in the worst Pokemon I've ever used. Its stats are just awful. It is, I believe, just a pure water type rather than a water and ice type Pokemon, so it doesn't even get stat damage on Ice Shard and Icy Wind. And then it's also got, like, Razor Shell, so, like, just awful stats. Not the best charge moves either. Yeah, honestly, we can't put it higher than this. Then we got Ghastly, and this is definitely really fun, but super hard to play. We did also rank this in the Glass Cannon tier list, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about this one. Next up, we've got Execute, and this Pokemon, I'm going to have to put it here. Solid pick, but nothing special. I think, honestly, if it just hit slightly harder than it does, maybe we could even put it in actually a great Pokemon. But it does just hit really softly, which, honestly, like, even when you are in a good matchup, if you can't really, like, take stuff out with 2 Seed Bombs when they're super effective, then it is a little bit disappointing. But next up, we've got Shadow Rhyhorn. This one is probably going to go in interesting typing, but moveset lets it down. It's got Mudslap, which of course got nerfed recently, and then for charge moves, it's got Horn Attack, which is a very underwhelming normal type move. It is a 35 energy charge move, so you can spam it, but it's just nowhere near as good as Swift or Body Slam. And then I believe it's also got Bulldoze, which again, just a very underwhelming move there. So this could be pretty fun to use, but unfortunately, it does need a, like, complete moveset overhaul for that to be the case. Next up, we got Kabuto. This Pokemon is very borderline, actually a great Pokemon, but I think its typing just isn't that good, so we're going to have to put it in a solid pick, but nothing special. Or maybe we even put it in very fun, but hard to play, just because, obviously, very weak to grass, you're weak to ground, you're weak to fighting, you're weak to electric, you are weak to a lot of typings, but actually, this thing can put in work if you can align it right. Next up, we've got Shadow Bayleaf, and actually, this Pokemon is genuinely a great Pokemon. I'd say this Pokemon is better than Meganium, just because you've got Ancient Power for coverage. You're actually, I think, also slightly bulkier than Meganium as well, and Meganium is reasonably bulky as well. So yeah, honestly, pretty decent Pokemon. Then we've got Shadow Ledian. This is a difficult one, because I think, stat-wise, in terms of his moveset as well, it's actually a great Pokemon, but just its typing isn't that great. It's very easily hard-countered, so I'm borderline putting it here or here. Should I just put it in actually a great Pokemon? You know what? I'm going to put it here. Next up, we've got Chinchou. Now, Chinchou is a bit of an awkward one. It's kind of just stat-wise, I believe it gets to like 1200 CP. Its typing is interesting, but maybe its moveset lets it down here, because it's got Spark, which is a little bit underwhelming, and then you've got Bubble Beam, Water Pulse, and Thunderbolt. If you had maybe a slightly cheaper charge move that wasn't Bubble Beam, or potentially like Thunder Shock instead of Spark, this Pokemon could actually be genuinely pretty decent. Whilst it doesn't reach a very high CP, it is actually a pretty bulky Pokemon as well. But yeah, unfortunately, the moveset is just a little bit underwhelming, and there's just really no reason why you would use this Pokemon over the likes of a Lantern, for example. Next up, we've got Yanma, and Yanma is similar to Ledian in terms of its typing is just really bad. Unfortunately, I don't think it's quite as good, so I'm going to put in a solid pick, but nothing special. Right, next up, we've got Shadow Murkrow, and this is definitely going to go into actually a great Pokemon. You guys probably already know this. You probably have one already built. One of the least spicy of the sort of spicy XL picks that I've got here, but it's kind of fallen off a little bit recently, so it's not nearly as common as it was maybe last season. But next up, we've got Teddiursa, and this Pokemon is kind of just meh all around. I think it just needs a better fast move, and then it could be really good. But at the moment, it's got the choice of Lick, which is quite underwhelming, and then also Scratch, which just, I mean, it does hit fairly hard, but it generates energy super slowly. So yeah, we then got Delibird. And this is going to have to go in interesting typing, but moveset lets it down. And actually, it's got Icy Wind and Fly for charge moves, which is pretty decent. It just needs a much better fast move than Present. I do understand why it's got Present is literally like it's literally Santa as a bird. But yeah, unfortunately, Present just not a great fast move, so it can't really go any higher than that. Next up, we got Smoochum, and this Pokemon is really fun to use, but it is also a very classy Pokemon. And honestly, I'm going to have to say the same for both Elekid and Magby as well. They're all pretty similar baby Pokemon, really fun to use as a trio, by the way. I would definitely recommend trying them out together if you have these Pokemon built, or if you want to build a fun trio of baby Pokemon. This is definitely the trio I would go for. Next up, we got Combusken, which I'd go for as a solid pick, but nothing special. You've got the choice of Ember or Peck as fast moves. You've got Rock Slide. I'm actually running mine with Return. I believe it also learns Flame Charge, and maybe Focus Blast or something like that. I'm actually not entirely sure, so feel free to fact check me on that one. I'm running mine with Return because back when Mud Slappers were super common, I'd use it as a safe swap, bait out something like a Gastrodon, and then just full send a Return and basically nuke them, which is really fun. But yeah, honestly, it's still not that great of a Pokemon. Next up, we've got Lombre, and this is going to go into interesting typing, but moveset lets it down. It's got Bubble, I believe Bubble Beam, maybe Water Pulse and Grass Knot, so like okay-ish moves, but it needs maybe a slightly better fast move, and maybe again just a slightly cheaper charge move that isn't Bubble Beam for it to be a bit more viable. Next up, we've also got Shadow Nuzleaf, and honestly, I probably wouldn't have built this Pokemon if it wasn't a shiny Shadow, just for that flex. But again, it's going to have to go in interesting typing, but moveset lets it down. If this thing learned like Sucker Punch or even Snarl, it could be on par with like Shiftry, or even better if it had Sucker Punch there. But unfortunately, it's got Feint Attack, which is just very underwhelming, or Razor Leaf, which is a very one-dimensional fast move. So yeah, we can't really put it any higher than that. Next up, we've got Aron, and I'm going to go for a solid pick, but nothing special. This Pokemon is actually pretty fun to use, but unfortunately, similar to, you know, your Growlithe, your Magnemite, it's very weak to ground typing, also very weak to fighting. However, it is a little bit bulkier. It's also got Rock Tomb to debuff the opponent's attack stat, which does make it slightly more viable. Next up, we've got Spinder, and honestly, I'm borderline thinking about putting this in actually a great Pokemon. But, you know what, yeah, let's put it here. We've got Icy Wind and Rock Tomb, both debuffing moves, so you can artificially boost up your defense. As well, you've got the choice of either Psycho Cut, which got buffed this season, or Sucker Punch as well, which is also a great fast move. Shadow Trapinch is it the worst Pokemon I've ever used? It's honestly near it. Maybe it's just fun, but lacks coverage to be viable, because you do technically have Crunch, but Crunch doesn't help in a lot of matchups. If he had some sort of coverage against flying type Pokemon, maybe that would be a lot more usable for it. So yeah, maybe we'll put it in fun, but lacks coverage to be viable. Next up, we've got Shadow Cacnea, and honestly, I'm just going to go with very fun to play, but hard to use. Yeah, like, honestly, pretty fun Pokemon to use there. I think if it was also a Dark-type Pokemon, I would even say a solid pick, or even actually just a great Pokemon, like, obviously, Shadow Cacturn, one of my favorite Pokemon to use, but because it is just a pure Grass type, you don't get stab damage on the Sucker Punches, so it doesn't quite hit as hard as maybe you would like it to. Next up, we got Corphish, and I think we're going to have to go same thing here. It's fun, but lacks coverage to be viable. It does have, I believe, Vice Grip and Return you could run it with as well. But, like, yeah, like, it's a little bit underwhelming. Moveset, you got Bubble and Aqua Jet. If it had a slightly better fast move, maybe you could rank it slightly higher than that. But next up, we've got Lileep. This Pokemon is actually really strong. Obviously, not quite as dominant as Credilli because it doesn't have Rock Tomb, but pretty similar stat products, and obviously same coverage. You've got Ancient Power instead, and then Grass Knot. And actually, if you get an Ancient Power boost, this Pokemon can kind of get out of hand. But yeah, we got Clamperl next, which is just going to go in kind of just meh all round. It's got Water Gun as a fast move, which just isn't a great fast move. And then Body Slam, Ice Beam, like, okay-ish charge moves, but I think just Water Gun really lets it down. Next up, we've got Drifloon. This Pokemon is a solid pick, but nothing special. There's honestly no reason why you'd use this over Drifblim, unless you just want to run something spicier, or if you wanted to run them in an ABB style team, which I think is also quite viable. But yeah, unfortunately, like, it just has strictly worse stats than the Drifblim, so yeah, honestly can't really rate it as a great Pokemon, but it's actually pretty decent. Now, next up, we've got Little Hippo, or Hippo, what's it called? Hippopotas? Yes, Hippopotas. And is this actually a great Pokemon? You know what? I'm going to say yes. This is kind of what I was thinking when I was talking about the Alolan Sandshrew, like having a decent moveset, but there are Pokemon that are just slightly better than it with a very similar moveset, and that's what I think the Hippopotas is. I think Hippopotas is just a slightly better version of that, because it does also have Body Slam, so slightly faster to reach a sort of neutral charge move, and then you do also have that Rock Tomb coverage. Next up, we got Snova, and I'm going to go with very fun but hard to play. I feel like if this Pokemon had Weather Ball, then I would definitely rank it higher, but unfortunately, because it's got Ice Beam and Energy Ball, I believe, it just takes a little bit of a while to get to those charge moves, which means that, yeah, there's literally no point in running it over the Abomasnow. And actually, it does just have a strictly worse moveset as well. Next up, we've got Roggenrola. I actually have a Shundo of this Pokemon, which is why I built it. But unfortunately, it is also just completely awful. Smackdown's been nerfed. I believe it's got Bulldoze and Rock Blast maybe as charge moves. Just really bad moveset. Not great stat product either. Just all around really bad Pokemon. And unless you've got a Shundo as well, I definitely would not recommend you build one. But next up, we've got Shadow Drillbur. Drillbur, honestly, I'm going to go with a solid pick, but nothing special. Honestly, before this season, where it got double nerfed with Mud Slap and Rock Tomb, I'd have probably put this in actually a great Pokemon, but unfortunately, because of those nerfs, I think it is just a little bit underwhelming, but it's still like a fairly decent pick there. But next up, we got Timber. Timber is going to go in probably a solid pick, but nothing special. I was going to think maybe very fun, but hard to play, but actually, it's a lot more playable than some of the other, like, XL fighting type Pokemon that we've got on this list. So next up, we've got Krokorok, which I really enjoy saying this Pokemon's name for some reason. Again, I'm going to say a solid pick, but nothing special. Typing-wise, it is quite unique, which is cool, but I do think that Crocodile having access to both Sand Tomb and Brick Break as just lower energy charge moves that debuff the opponent's defense do make it a slightly stronger pick than this Pokemon. Next up, we've got Dwebble, and unfortunately, Dwebble is another Pokemon that has been nerfed recently with Smackdown.
Honestly, I'd go with interesting typing, but moveset lets it down. If it also had Fury Cutter, like its evolution does, then this Pokemon could be really fun, as it does also have Rock Tomb and X-Scissor, which is a great combination. But yeah, Smackdown, unfortunately, just really lets this Pokemon down. Again, Scraggy, we're going to have to put this in the same category here. Interesting typing, but moveset lets it down, as it does have, I believe, Feint Attack or Rock Smash as fast moves. Again, just really underwhelming, but it does have Foul Play, I believe Thunder Punch for coverage, and Upper Hand, and actually Brick Break as well. So honestly, like, decent charge move options, just the fast move really does let it down. Next up, we've got the Galarian Yamask. I'm going to go for good typing slash moveset, but stats let it down. It's got Astonish, Nightshade, and Rock Tomb, which is actually a great combination. However, unfortunately, it's another Pokemon like Pikachu. I think maybe just barely cracks 1100 CP, but honestly, just it doesn't hit very hard, so I can't really rank it any higher than that. Next up, we got Tirtuga, and I'm going to go with interesting typing, but moveset lets it down. Unfortunately, another one stuck with like Water Gun as the fast move. It's got like okayish charge moves. You've got Body Slam, Surf, I believe Ancient Power. But yeah, unfortunately, just with Water Gun, it is quite underwhelming. Next up, we've got Hisuian Zorua. This Pokemon is very fun, but hard to play. I do feel like if it had a slightly better fast move than Snarl, this Pokemon could be crazy to use. If it had Shadow Claw, I don't actually know if this Pokemon learns Shadow Claw in the main series games, but this would be honestly on par with like Hisuian Zoroark in terms of its fun levels. But unfortunately, with Snarl, it's just a little bit underwhelming in that department. But it is still very fun, but it just makes it a little bit harder to use. Next up, Carablast, similar story, really fun to use. Unfortunately, very easily walled by flying-type Pokemon, which is why I can't really rank it any higher than this. Next up, we got Fungus, and honestly, this Pokemon has a decent typing, great moveset, but its stat product, its stat product is fairly decent, but it's just super bulky, so when you barely reach over 1000 CP and you're really bulky, what that means is that you just barely hit hard at all, which means, unfortunately, you do have a hard time just taking Pokemon out, which I think is the main reason why I can't rank it any higher than this. Next up, Frillish, and Frillish, honestly, is a great Pokemon. Obviously, Jellicent, you guys know, is one of the best Pokemon in the Open Great League, but Frillish is honestly pretty decent, and I'm quite surprised that more people haven't built this Pokemon before. Next up, we got Joltik, and I'm going to have to put this one here as well. Good typing slash moveset, but stats just let it down. It's got Sucker Punch as a fast move, which is obviously a great fast move. You then got Cross Poison and Discharge, which unfortunately, because the stats are really bad, they just don't hit very hard at all. So unfortunately, can't really rank it any higher than that. Next up, we've got Axew, and it's not even an interesting typing, so we're going to have to put it in the worst Pokemon I've ever used. It's got Iron Tail and Scratch as fast moves, which are just super underwhelming. There's no reason to use this Pokemon over likes of Fracture, which has a similar stat product, but just obviously has Dragon Tail as well. It does have decent charge moves. Well, decent enough. It's got Arc Tail and Dragon Claw, but yeah, unfortunately, just fast moves really let it down. Next up, we've got Cubchoo, and I'm going to go with is fun, but it lacks coverage to be viable. It does technically have coverage with Play Rough, I think it's got, but unfortunately Play Rough doesn't really help it into Fire-type Pokemon, for example. If it had maybe Surf, like its evolution does, maybe you could rank it slightly higher. It does have Powder Snow, Icy Wind, Ice Punch, which I think you'd probably typically run because you just don't want to run Play Rough for coverage. But yeah, if you had Surf, maybe that would be slightly better for it, but either way, can't really rank it higher than that. Next up, Meanfu, and again, like these other fighting-type Pokemon, unfortunately, it just doesn't have any coverage at all. It doesn't even have a purified version where you can run return. So yeah, basically, it has only fighting type charge moves, which means, yes, of course, in neutral situations or when it's super effective, it is a decent Pokemon. However, unfortunately, you just get completely walled by so many Pokemon in the meta. Next up, we've got Golett, and this is another Pokemon where before the Mudslap nerf, I'd even consider this to be a great Pokemon. But for now, since Mudslap did get nerfed, whilst you can still run it with Astonish, I'm going to have to go with a solid pick, but nothing special. Next up, we got Pawniard, and I'm going to go for the same here. This Pokemon has really good niche usage in certain limited metas, but unfortunately, in the Open Great League, there are just too many Pokemon that do just completely destroy it. Next up, we've got Rufflet, and honestly, this Pokemon is a really decent Pokemon. You've got obviously Peck as the fast move, Fly, and Rock Tomb. Really great coverage there. Honestly, quite an underrated Pokemon. And also, you don't need that many XL candies to power this Pokemon up either. So honestly, a pretty underrated Pokemon. Next up, we got Vullaby, and Vullaby is kind of borderline here and here. It's really bulky, not quite as bulky as Mandibuzz, of course, but honestly, like, it is pretty bulky. It also has Brave Bird, so it does hit a lot harder than Mandibuzz with its charge moves. So you know what, let's actually put it here in actually a great Pokemon. Right, now we actually can't see the rest of the Pokemon here because we have too many lists that have sort of overflowed here. But next up we've got Larvesta. Larvesta is gonna go in very fun but a bit hard to play. Unfortunately, it is a Pokemon that's kind of just walled by a lot of different Pokemon, but actually typing wise it is quite unique there. Next up, we're going to go with Fletchinder, and Fletchinder is going to have to go in actually a great Pokemon. It is unfortunately not quite as good as Talonflame. It does not have access to Incinerate, but you do have the choice of Ember or Peck as fast moves, which are both great options. So I do think this is a pretty underrated Pokemon again. Next up, we've got Litleo, and Litleo is another Pokemon where I'm going to go with actually a great Pokemon. It is definitely better than its evolution in Pyroar. And it also has, like, in limited metas, can just completely wall certain really dominant Pokemon. So I do think this Pokemon is also underrated. In the Open Great League, maybe not that strong, but honestly, a very good Cup Pokemon. Next up, we've got Floette, and I don't really know. I think we're just going to go with kind of just meh. It's got Vine Whip. I think if it had Fairy Wind, we could rank it a bit higher than this. But unfortunately, Vine Whip, non-stab damage, and then just kind of high energy charge moves make it quite underwhelming. And then Flabébé is literally just the same thing, but with way worse stats. There's no reason to run this Pokemon. And so yeah, I definitely would not recommend you build this Pokemon at all. But next up, we got Natu. Now, I only very briefly used this Pokemon because I used it in an A to Z challenge, and then I evolved it immediately so that I had an Ultra League Xatu for the X letter. I'm going to go with very fun but hard to play. In the few battles that I did use it for, it was pretty fun, but unfortunately, it's fairly attack weighted, but it doesn't quite hit as hard as you maybe would want it to. Next up, we got Pancham. Recently used this Pokemon. I'm going to go with a solid pick, but nothing special. Like, it does actually have a little bit of coverage. With Crunch, you can hit ghost types for super effective damage, unlike a lot of these fighting types here, which just have no coverage at all. But unfortunately, it's not quite as good as any of the picks in the top tier. Next up, we're going to go with Inkay, and honestly, this Pokemon has a really cool typing, obviously, you know, from Malamar. It's also got Night Slash, so it's slightly spammier, but its secondary charge move is a little bit underwhelming. You could run the Purified version, actually, and run it with Return, but I think the main thing is just its stats let it down. It just doesn't hit very hard at all. If you do get a Night Slash boost, though, however, that could actually swing things in your favor, but if you don't get that boost, then yeah, it kind of just does not hit hard enough. Similar thing for Skrelp, really. I feel like this Pokemon has a great typing, decent moveset as well. You can also run Twister this season, or you can run Sludge Bomb for coverage, or like good matchups into Fairy types. However, again, stats-wise, it just doesn't hit very hard. Next up, we got Clauncher. This Pokemon is, I would say, it's fun but lacks coverage to be viable, but actually it's just not fun. It's got Water Gun, it's then got Water Pulse maybe, and Aqua Jet as charge moves. Just pure Water type moveset. And also, Water Gun is an awful fast move. So yeah, honestly, I don't know why I even built this Pokemon, but we've built it, so it is what it is. Next up, we got Amora, and this Pokemon is, honestly, I'd say it's actually a great Pokemon, but its typing is pretty bad, so maybe we'll just go with a solid pick, but nothing special. Of course, you guys will know that Aurorus is, well, in certain limited metas, can be very strong, but its typing, it is so weak to so many different things, and of course, this Pokemon doesn't have Meteor Beam, so you can't just ramp up your attack stat like you can with the Aurorus, so I'm gonna have to put it here. It does have Thunderbolt for coverage, though, which is quite cool. You could hit something like a Jellicent or Empoleon for super effective damage, where they might not expect it. But next up, we got Pumpkaboo, and I'm going to go with actually a great Pokemon. Now, of course, its evolution, Gourgeist, recently getting Incinerate, does now very much overshadow this Pokemon, but prior to that, Pumpkaboo used to be definitely a way better option than the Gourgeist, and actually, as a Grass and Ghost-type Pokemon, I'd say this ranks fairly highly in terms of the list. I'd say, honestly, it has more play these days than Trevenant does, which is quite surprising. Next up, we got Trumbeak, and I'm going to go with a solid pick, but nothing special. Like, there's no reason that you would use this Pokemon over Toucannon. You can run it as a purified Pokemon with Return, and that's exactly what I do. And of course, Return does get stab on the normal typing, so it can honestly like nuke certain Pokemon, but still, I think Toucannon is just, of course, strictly better. And then you've got the likes of Fearow as well, lots of other flying and normal type Pokemon, so I can't really rank it higher than this, but it does at least hit fairly hard, which the Pidgeotto just doesn't do, which is why I do rank this one higher than the Pidgeotto. But next up, we got Salandit, and this is going to go in very fun but hard to play. This Pokemon doesn't have the best stats. It does have Ember, Poison Fang, and Flamethrower, which is really cool. However, I do think maybe just a slightly better moveset could really propel this Pokemon, make this Pokemon really fun to use. And again, also typing-wise, like, it completely shuts down the likes of Wigglytuff, which I love, but then it also just gets completely shut down by so many Pokemon, so many common Pokemon in the current meta as well, so can't really rank it any higher than that. Next up, we got Moltegoat, and I'm going to go with a solid pick, but nothing special. Honestly, this Pokemon, I do enjoy using it, but it's, well, actually, you know what? Screw it. Let's go in actually a great Pokemon. I enjoy using this Pokemon, and honestly, like, a lot of people don't really show this Pokemon as much respect as they should. When I'm going up against them, they'll often no-shield a Shadow Ball, and they're just basically near get one-shot. So honestly, like, this Pokemon puts in a lot of work when I do use it. Next up, we got Sizzlipede. And this Pokemon, surprisingly, actually does fairly decently when I do try to use it, so I'm going to go with very fun but hard to play. Like, it does still get completely walled by certain Pokemon. However, you've got Crunch, so you've got coverage up against Ghost types, which most bug types will struggle against. And then you can also run Heat Wave, which you got buffs this season. So honestly, like, decent moveset. Maybe actually, you know what, maybe we'll go with good typing, but stats let it down, as it does just barely reach 1100 CP. Next up, Varoom, I'm going to go with very fun but hard to play once again. Again, another Pokemon that just completely shuts down Wigglytuff. I love that because Wigglytuff is my least favorite Pokemon of all time. But again, it is really easy to hard counter it. Next up, we got Frigibax, and I'm going to go with a solid pick, but nothing special. I would say before the sort of Dragon rework, where Dragon Breath obviously was a harder hitting but slower energy generating fast move, and then Dragon Claw was a very cheap move, I would have honestly said that this Pokemon is actually a great Pokemon, whereas now, unfortunately, whilst yes, you do get to the Icy Winds faster, I think the fact that it does take a while to get to a Dragon Claw does make this Pokemon just a little bit underwhelming. And the reason why I can't rank it any higher than this. Next up, we got Onix, and yeah, just one of the worst Pokemon I've ever used. It's really slow. It's got Rock Throw as the fast move. It is super defensive, so it basically just does not hit hard at all. So unless you're going up against like a Charizard or a Talonflame, the Rock Throw damage, even when it's super effective, won't really look like it's super effective at all. And honestly, like, yeah, you basically just set yourself up to be farmed down by something, allow the opponent's Pokemon to come out with like 100 energy and just completely steamroll the rest of your team. So honestly, I don't think I've ever had a good game with Onix, and I have to put it down here. Next up, we got Dratini, and Dratini probably going to go in this category. Good moveset. Unfortunately, stats do let it go down. There's literally no reason why you'd run this Pokemon over Dragonair, because, well, I guess it does learn Twister, which Dragonair doesn't. But yeah, stats-wise, it just doesn't hit hard enough to be viable, in my opinion. Same thing for Bellsprout. It's got Acid as a fast move. You've got Wrap to debuff the opponent's defense, which is quite cool. And then you do have the choice of Sludge Bomb or Power Whip, which are decent charge moves. But again, I believe it just barely reaches 1100 CP, so just not great stat product-wise. We then got Hisuian Voltorb. Unfortunately, this Pokemon is going to have to fall in here. It's stats-wise, it's, again, another Pokemon that barely reaches 1100 CP, but it's got Charge Beam and Tackle as the fast moves, and it is just so bad. Like, it has, I mean, like, typing-wise, it's really cool, but that's basically the only thing this Pokemon has going for it. Stat-wise, really bad. Moveset-wise, really bad, and just one of the worst Pokemon I have ever used in the Go Battle League. Next up, we got Houndour, and I'm going to go with very fun but hard to play. Another glassy Pokemon, but in the right matchups, it can put in a ton of work. Next up, we've got Galarian Meowth. I'm going to go with good typing / moveset, but stats let it down. Another Pokemon that I don't think reaches 1200 CP, but it's got Metal Sound, Night Slash, and Trailblaze for its moveset, which is actually a fairly decent moveset. But again, if it just had a slightly better stat product, this Pokemon could genuinely be viable. Next up, Eevee, and unfortunately, I know there's going to be a lot of Eevee fans, but this Pokemon is one of the worst that I've ever built. Unfortunately, when I built it as well, Body Slam was the preferred charge move, which was Legacy at the time, so I used an Elite Charge TM, then it got nerfed, then Swift got buffed, so then I removed that Legacy move anyways, and now Body Slam is actually the same move as Swift, so I didn't need to remove the Legacy move, but it didn't really make any difference anyways. But yeah, unfortunately, both Body Slam and Dig, which is a coverage move, have been nerfed in, well, not recent seasons, but since I built it. And yeah, this Pokemon just always seems to let me down whenever I use it. Next up, we got Baneri, and Baneri is kind of just meh all round. Like, there are lots of pure normal type Pokemon that are just going to be way better than it. It's got an okayish move, like, it's a viable moveset. It's got Quick Attack, Swift, and Fire Punch, so similar in terms of, like, the Eevee. It does have a better stat product, so I do rank it higher than the Eevee, but yeah, kind of just meh. And then for Dustox, I'm going to go with a solid pick, but nothing special. This Pokemon is pretty bulky, but it just, like, because it's bulky and it, I think, doesn't reach, I think it barely reaches like 1300 CP. Unfortunately, it just doesn't hit very hard, and its typing-wise, just not that unique, so we can't really rank it any higher than that. But yeah, that's going to be the final list for the XL Pokemon that I have personally built and used in the Go Battle League. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.